Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 18.2.1 has been out to the public for a couple weeks, and iOS 18.3 Beta 3 has been out to developers and public beta testers for a couple days. But there's even more new features to talk about since the iOS 18.3 Beta 3 is out. What's new video? We'll talk about not just features, but some Apple news, the overall experience, and not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll. I posted this a little bit late, so there's 5,500 votes and 82 comments. I've gone through all the comments to determine what the experience is like for everyone so far, and we'll take a look at some of those comments toward the end of the video, so be sure to stick around. Now, last week I talked about how Apple fixed a lot of issues with iOS 18.2.1 with battery with their latest update, and this is turning out to be an excellent update. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but this week Apple shared new photos of the new Mix-C store in China, and it shows a new layout which includes a combined pickup area and Genius Bar. So this could be something going forward that looks a little bit different. Now, if you're using ChatGPT, and I don't mean the ChatGPT Siri integration, but rather the app, if you're using the app, they're rolling out some new beta features for tasks. Once you set a task in the app, the reminder will actually show up as a notification on the lock screen. So let me know if you're trying this out yet, if you have the beta, and what you think of that. Since maybe you have a phone that doesn't support Apple Intelligence, you can use the ChatGPT app and do the same thing. Now, many people keep asking me when their state or country is going to add digital ID, and it looks like we have another state that's going to add it at least this year. Illinois is set to release it according to a recent post by the Secretary of State. This could take until the end of 2025 though. So we could see quite a few updates this year, and hopefully we'll see more countries as well, but they do have to work directly with Apple. But so far we don't have a lot of them. We're missing quite a few states, and there's no additional countries really outside of basically the United States areas. Now, the Apple Store this week, the Apple Store app specifically, if you have this, has now been updated, and it's now available in India as well. This is the first time we've seen it in India, and it looks like it's available there. So that's great news. Right after they updated it for the United States and everywhere else, it was available there also. So that's great. If you've been wanting it, be sure to check it out. And if you have a local Apple Store, and bring it up, it will actually welcome you directly in the app, so be sure to check that out. The UK is gaining hearing aid capability for AirPods Pro 2 soon, according to an article by The Telegraph. This is something that is available in a couple different countries at this point and does require the local government's approval, so it should be coming very soon. We don't know if that's with iOS 18.3 or something else, but at least it'll be coming to that country soon. Now, as far as new features this week, well, the first new feature in iOS 18.3 Beta 3 that I didn't mention in the What's New video that's been found since is if we go into a web page, then we take a screenshot here. If we go into that screenshot, go to a full page, and then go to crop that screenshot. Because it's a full page, you'll see here, if we bring this in, maybe go a little bit smaller, tap done, we'll get a warning that the cropped content is not removed from the PDF. Content outside the cropped area won't be visible in most PDF viewers, but it can be made visible in some apps. So it's just a warning about this, and it's something new that Apple has added. So if you're taking full page screenshots and saving them as a PDF, just be aware of that. If you have an iPhone 16 with the camera control button, and we go into settings, and then we go to camera, and then camera control, they've now changed the actual name here for lock focus and exposure. This is good news because this was previously named something else. In fact, we can see that on iOS 18.2.1. If we go to camera and camera control side by side, we actually have AE/AF lock. This is something that's been renamed to lock focus and exposure, which makes more sense and clarifies it. And then in Beta 3, just as a quick recap, we also had, if we go into our messages here, tap the plus on the left, we have Genmoji if you have an Apple Intelligence supported device, and also notification summaries are now italicized. So they look a little bit different like this, and you can see what it looks like here. I actually like this as it stands out a little bit better when you go into your notifications. So definitely something that I think is nice, but nothing major. However, with upcoming features, we should be getting a couple options such as default maps and translation apps in the EU. We don't know if it's going to be in iOS 18.3, as well as PayPal support in Apple Wallet. So that's something we could see with this update, maybe with the next version, the RC. As far as Apple Intelligence features, well, I'm surprised we don't have anything else at this point. Priority notifications, we did get some notification changes there. Maybe we'll see that by the end when it's released to the public. There's no updated Siri, and Apple Intelligence is still not available in many parts of the world. So hopefully we'll see more of that very soon. When it comes to the next iPhones, well, the iPhone SE4 leaked this week. There was a recent photo of it with the dummy models that were shown by Sonny Dixon on X. We expect Apple to release the new model within a month or two, and those models look basically just as what we expected. An iPhone 14 style with a singular camera, no action button, and no camera control button. So that's what we're expecting. We'll talk more about that in the weekly Apple News update. And also we heard more about iOS 19. We know Apple's been working on this. They've been facing maybe some delays with features, but it may be a bigger update than expected, according to a recent leak by John Prosser. Now, we've heard much of this before, but it seems John has seen a redo of the camera app with controls that have moved and a little bit of a change here with the overall design. It has a more translucent design, which is something I like. It looks like it's mimicking what we have with Vision Pro, and maybe some rounded icons. But to put the actual menu where it is, I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense. But we'll take a look at this a little bit more in depth in the weekly Apple News update, as maybe we'll hear from other leakers as well as to what Apple's actually planning and see if it lines up. Now, as far as releases this week, well, we had a late release this week of tvOS 18.2.1 on Thursday when we had iOS 18.3 Beta 3 released. We also had an odd update for a MagSafe charger. So if you're wanting to update the MagSafe charger, the new version is 2A143. Basically, you can plug it into your Mac, charge your iPhone. It will just update on its own. There is no specific way to tell it to update, but there is a new version and you can see that under About. Now, also this week, I do expect iOS 18.3 RC at this point, maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday. We don't have a specific date, but given that we had a late release this past week, I do expect it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, and then maybe a public release on the 27th. Now, it's possible we could see iOS 18.3 Beta 4, then an RC the week of the 26th, and then a release early February, but typically Apple releases this at the end of January. Also, Apple stopped signing iOS 18.2 last week, so it's possible we could see an iOS 18.2.2 if they push it out to a Beta 4, or maybe there's just something urgent they need to fix. I'm not sure why they got rid of the rapid security responses, but so far we haven't seen anything there. Now, as far as the weekly updates and what they're like, well, iOS 17.7.2, the overall experience seems to be great. Many people still are just waiting to stay on that version. Maybe wait for iOS 17.7.3, but it looks like Apple's not making it easy to either downgrade, as you can't do that anymore, and they're not making it easy to even upgrade from 17.7.2. So that may be a problem for some people. I know quite a few people, though, do not want to move to iOS 18. However, with iOS 18.2.1, the overall experience has been pretty great for a lot of people. It's been an excellent update, and many people are saying it's getting better as time goes on. It's generally pretty good. It's fixed lag for many people and the overall responsiveness. There are some exceptions to that. Some still have touch issues from time to time. I see that more on the beta than I do with the public release. And then there's also slow Face ID. Many people are saying that it works, but it just seems to be a little bit slower. So on the 16 Pro Max here, it seems to be nice and fast, but some people do say it's a little bit slower. And also there's continued issues with the camera sometimes going to a black display. So if you go into photo, sometimes it just goes to a black display for some. Thankfully, I haven't seen this myself, but I know of quite a few people that have had this, more so on iOS 18.2, but it still exists for some people on 18.2.1, it seems. Now, as I mentioned last week, and the reason I say this is an excellent update, is 76% of people in the comments said the battery was the same or better than iOS 18.2. So that's good news if it's increasing your battery life overall, and many people are saying the same thing. I'm seeing that after a week or two of it actually processing in the background, they're saying it's actually improving. Only 24% said it's worse, and actually the numbers are a little bit different with this week's, where it's a little bit higher than 76% saying the battery was better. So it looks like we've got some good news there, and it's an excellent update for that anyway. That's usually the case. Many people wait for the 0.2.1 or whatever we have as far as a 3-digit out update to update as far as battery. Still no signs of battery intelligence, which we definitely could use to tell us how long devices will charge. We've seen this on other devices before. Maybe we'll see it with the final release. It was in early code earlier than this version, so maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't at this point. As far as a couple other things I wanted to mention, iOS 18.2.1 does have some keyboard issues for some. It slows down and reboots for others, and the people that have those issues can quickly fix that by doing a hard reboot. That's volume up, volume down, press and hold the power sleep wake button, and keep pressing until it reboots. If you do that, it typically fixes those issues. Maybe it gets stuck doing something in the background, but generally it fixes the overall experience. If you've done that, and it's not doing that, it's pretty rare, so it seems like it's fixing it for most people. iOS 18.3 Beta 3 and iOS 18.3 Public Beta 3, being the same thing, are generally pretty good. It's been very stable for me over the past couple days at this point. There are a couple things to mention though. One thing I'm experiencing is an odd touch bug. Now this does not seem to be specific to an app, but I could go into any app, so maybe sometimes I'll go into podcasts. Maybe I'll scroll down, go to library, and sometimes just tapping on something doesn't work. If I want to go to my shows, it won't work. I keep tapping on it and nothing happens. To fix it, I close out of the app, go back in, and it fixes it every time. So I don't know if this is something specific with certain apps that haven't been updated or just the operating system, but it is definitely an odd bug. I haven't really heard of any other bugs from most people. It seems to be a very good experience, and as far as overall performance, many people are saying that they think it looks a little bit faster as far as the animations. Initially, many people were saying that it seemed to be a little bit slower, but maybe after a day or so, it seems much faster. So for whatever reason, it seems like it's sped up going into you'll see music. I think it feels just smooth in general. I don't think it feels any faster personally, but going into the app library and scrolling, ProMotion seems nice and fast. No real issues there. And as far as the overall heat of the device, it's staying nice and cool. In fact, it was very cool during the iOS 18.3 Beta 3 is out video. I was surprised how good the temperatures were. So it's staying nice and cool. So let's take a look at that. With iOS 18.3 Beta 3 on the 16 Pro Max, at the hottest point, we're at about 31.8 degrees Celsius. And on the 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.2.1, we're just below 30 degrees Celsius, or just hitting that as we move around. So in general, it seems to be doing very well, staying nice and cool, not processing a whole lot in the background. However, I did hear of one person having an odd issue with the beta there, where it did heat up, they did a hard reboot, and it fixed the problem. So for whatever reason, it seems like it's improved, but if you are having that issue again, a hard reboot seems to fix it. When it comes to overall battery life, well, the battery life in general has been pretty good on iOS 18.2.1, as I said before. Let's take a look at someone's battery. Thanks to Abhishek for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 11 Pro Max with 77% battery health, charging to 80% regularly. You can see that here, last charged to 80%, and he used about 90% of his battery, but got 7 hours and 21 minutes of screen on time, 22 minutes of screen off time. That's pretty great. You can see the other stats here where he got 150% of his battery used, meaning he charged it, and he had 9 hours and 44 minutes. So overall, it seems to be getting him through the day, no problem. When it comes to iOS 18.3 Beta 3 though, well, on my 16 Pro Max, you can see I'm already at low battery mode. I didn't charge it today just to share this with you. And if we go to battery health, you'll see I'm at 100% with 106 cycles. You can see more details here with Coconut Battery, a Mac app that you can download for free outside the App Store. And if we go to the last 10 days, you'll see yesterday I had 2 hours and 32 minutes of screen active time and 4 hours and 22 minutes of screen idle time, and used 75% of my battery. So for me, iOS 18.3's battery is not great. And then today I've had 39 minutes. So between both of those, about 3 hours of screen on time, and we're down to 20% exactly. So not very good as far as that goes. So hopefully it will improve over the next couple of days, but you'll see before with the previous beta, it was definitely doing a little bit better. When it comes to the overall benchmarks, let's go ahead and take a look at those. From left to right, we have iPadOS 18.3 Beta 3 on the M4 iPad Pro 13-inch. Then we have iOS 18.2.1 on the 16 Pro Max, iOS 18.3 Beta 3 on the iPhone 11, and also iOS 18.3 Beta 3 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Overall, the iOS 18.2.1 has the best scores when it comes to the iPhones, but of course the iPad's going to be a little bit higher. If we take a look at iOS 18.3 Beta 3, well, considering I ran this at 20% battery, it brought me down to 18%. You'll see it's well within the margin of error, so it's performing as you would expect, about the same as what we had the other day here when I ran it for the first time when it released to the public, or when it released to developers rather. So in general, it's pretty good. Now, as far as the overall experience, let's take a look at some of the comments and see what you had to say. Kent Wingard 8803 said, "Hi Aaron, running iOS 18.2.1 on a 15 Pro Max. Battery life is so much better for me than 18.2, but Face ID seems to be slower. Overall, the entire operation of the phone feels less responsive and snappy on iOS 18.2.1. Greggy3660 said, "I'm running 18.2.1 on a 16 Pro Max and has felt like the iPhone is running slower. Battery life is a little better. The touchscreen seems less responsive. Hope they figure it out and fix the issues." M1CH809 said, "I'm running iOS 18.2.1 on 15 Pro Max. I've noticed that sometimes the screen is unresponsive, there are some stuttering issues, and the battery life is not so bad." Zendino said, "Having minimal glitches on 18.2.1, 14 Pro, nothing significant to even recall one thing." Blind Gordy said, "I'm on iOS 18.2.1 on my iPhone 15 Pro. Overall performance generally good, and battery life is back to the way it should be for me, even as a heavy user." Lokman Syed said, "I've been using iOS 18.2.1 and iOS 18.3 Beta 3 on two different 16 Pro Max. iOS 18.2.1 has been really stable, with the exception of a few little bugs. Battery life has been amazing. iOS 18.3 Beta 3 has been okay, but very buggy. I was doing some work yesterday and had my AirPods connected to my phone, listening to my phone with my screen off. My phone just completely rebooted out of nowhere. But except for the battery life has been amazing. Can easily get through the day without any problem." Doc Chemist says, "iPhone 16 Pro on iOS 18.3. Camera app is starting slowly often, same for apps like Snapchat. When it comes to overall connectivity, I've had no issues with cellular or Wi-Fi this time around on the beta or even iOS 18.2.1. That's with a Wi-Fi 7 router, an Eero router, and it seems to be doing okay. I know it's not the case for everyone, but I'm curious what router you're using as well. As far as AirPods connectivity, it's been pretty good for me. No issues switching between Mac and iPhone. It seems to be pretty good, both on 18.2.1 and the beta. The same is true with CarPlay for the most part. It seems to stay connected. I've had no issues. I've tried it on two different vehicles of different makes, and it seems to be just fine, staying connected, playing music, and having no issues. The only issues I have is when I go into an area with poor signal. Of course, it stops playing if it's streaming, but that's pretty typical if you lose signal. I did want to quickly mention the TikTok ban. By this time, it may be banned, or maybe it's not. Maybe they did something and changed it. But let me know what you think of that in the comments below, of course. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And again, by the time you're watching this video, things could change completely. We don't really know. And so that's everything with iOS 18.3 Beta 3 and iOS 18.2.1. I'm looking forward to the RC next, hopefully with some more features and maybe some changes there as well. Let me know if you've found any additional features I didn't mention in this video. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.